This Baltimore Ravens team preview edition of the Sports Gambling Podcast is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog is giving away $15 million. Best Ball Mania 5. Sign up with SGPN to claim your first time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Rhythm's college football and NFL projections are now live. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM.
Hey folks, this is Bud Foster. You're listening to SGPN. Let's let it ride. Go Hokies, man.
Cox. He's one of those guys who will get penetration.
Welcome everyone to the Sports Gambling Podcast. I'm Sean, stacking the money green with my partner in picks, Ryan, Real Money Kramer. What's happening, Kramer?
Dog. Just talking to all these people in the DMV, probably Hokies fans.
Oh, okay.
Go Hokies. Kyron drones, baby. Drone strikes. All right.
There you go. You got your Virginia Tech stuff out of the way.
Well, I mean, revisionist history, but Tyrod goes to Baltimore. Joe Flacco maybe gets hurt there. Tyrod leads them to that Super Bowl, not Joe Flacco.
Wow.
Would have been a hell of a homecoming for one of maybe the greatest Hokie quarterback I ever watched.
We just taped an interview with the legendary Phil Steele talking college football. That's going to be dropping on our week 0 college football picks episode, which is right around the corner. Ryan, next week college football officially kicks off.
We actually allowed Colby said no, we got to do 2. We still haven't picked our playoff yet.
Oh yeah,
so we have a final playoff picks. Maybe we'll dabble a little more Heisman shit, and then a week 0 show.
Usually the college football playoff episode's kind of it's like, oh hey, 4 teams, it's gonna be Alabama, Georgia, Ohio
this is
State,
gonna be
Michigan.
fun.
But now that you have 12 teams, it's gonna be pretty awesome.
Yes.
And of course we are in the home stretch here. After this preview, we will only have 4 teams left: the Lions, the Bengals, the Chiefs,
and the Niners.
The Niners. Yeah, you're right.
Loaded guess.
Loaded guess. Got guess for all of them there. Great time so far, and of course.
And after that, Sean.
Yes.
Because some have asked, what happened to the division previews? They didn't go anywhere.
No,
we just do those at the end once we do all the team previews.
Yeah, we can give out our locks for the win totals, our favorite futures from the team previews. It's going to be awesome, and then we're going to be doing.
It's like Russian dolls.
Yeah, nesting dolls of content. One underdog entry for each division preview where we put together 4-player. One from each team, right? I think is the way to do it. It's going to be a lot of fun, and of course, everyone been sending it. People now that there are only 4 words left,
have they figured
in
it
the
out?
32-word phrase? A lot of people are very, very close. But again, that's why you got to listen to every team preview to get every word. The Ravens episode, the word is we, WE, very simple. And of course, Kramer, you were correct on the Ravens taking their over on the win total. I was incorrect. Had the under.
Shocking.
Win total was 10.5. I'm always a little salty on the Ravens. I got to remember the playoffs are when to fade the Ravens and not during the regular season. They dominate the regular season, even by their standards. Kind of a number 1 in ATS margin, plus 8.3 points in 2023, largest ATS margin of any team. Since the Ravens in 2019, and again they expect they hopped over their expected win total there by a decent amount. I think let's bring up the roster stuff because I do think there is some interesting stuff. Losing defensive coordinator Mike McDonald to Seattle, I think
and a number of assistants, and
a number of assistants, and again, why I hop in the team subreddit, check on the kind of the team news. Their offensive line head coach, who has been like really a big part of their success, or at least their offensive line having a good offensive line, he's been hospitalized. I don't know how long he's going to be out, so hopefully that guy's all right, but. Again,
could be a tragic magic situation.
It could be. Yeah, could be. But again, I think they've lost a decent amount of some pretty good coaches.
Harbaugh's still a good coach.
I think Harbaugh's a good coach. Yeah, I don't.
When you can replace defensive coaches at the clip that they have, it does seem
true.
like you shouldn't really be worried.
Good coach, but is he a great coach? Because they really struggled to get over the hump in the playoffs with some historically good teams.
You have to blame the coach. You have to blame the quarterback. But also, it's like you can only be the guy that keeps failing in the big moment by continuing to get to the big moment. And so it's a little bit of the same tone with the Bills episode where,
true,
there's going to be bits of, hey, I think there could be some regression here sprinkled in, but I mean, they did it against a tough schedule last year as well.
Well, they did face
the division, kind of like we say in the AFC South. It's kind of loaded, so we're always going to say that the AFC North teams tend to have a tougher division, especially when looking at it with actual performance on the field.
Did have a turnover differential of +12. You compare that to only +4 in 2022, so maybe that falls off a little bit. Lost Patrick Queen. That was a pretty big departure, although they brought in
the Ravens. Don't think it was.
Yeah, no, and I think their defense.
As Steelers fans, we think it was a huge loss.
What do you mean?
Well, he went to the Steelers.
Oh yeah, the Steelers were super excited, and he's going to be fired up for those games. Bringing in Derrick Henry, I don't know how much he has left, but man, especially in the red zone, in from the 5 in, I expect him to have a bunch of touchdowns. And I thought I was going to be like on to something of Derrick Henry to lead the league in rushing touchdowns. Meanwhile, he's the favorite, I think
one of the key analytical ways to look at this is just the success rate of that offense in Tennessee, especially when you zoom into like the offensive line success rates. He wasn't given the runway he needs to run, that kind of couple steps to get going. Meanwhile, you look at the Ravens, they're the complete opposite of the Titans last year. Very successful, especially creating those initial couple yards. I think that has to do with the horizontal nature of the Lamar running game. And so, yeah, I'm with you. It's very hard without saying he's just going to get hurt to say Derrick Henry doesn't score 10+ touchdowns.
Yeah, I know we're not talking fantasy here, but Christian McCaffrey is actually the leader odds wise 6-1. Derrick Henry +650. So how is Derrick Henry second in the odds to lead the league in rushing touchdowns? But you look at where he's getting drafted. It doesn't really make sense. I guess
injury,
half point PPR, but in full point PPR, I understand him being down the list a little bit, but half point PPR, I think you got to be a little bit higher on market than. I
think the only people that play half point PPR are underdog.
Yeah,
they've created their own industry of half point PPR. Yeah, I think it's that. I think also just with the touchdown guys, they tend to follow. Gus Edwards, another good example, gonna score touchdowns. Maybe there's not as much other stuff, but Derrick Henry, to your point, not a huge fan of the older guys typically, but his ceiling is quite high. But you can't buy those prices. That's crazy.
No. I mean, crazy. I thought we'd get like maybe a 15-1 or 20-1. Clearly, the market ahead of it. I did like their draft. I mean, Nate Wiggins looking good early. They always seem to draft pretty good here. But yeah, it just seems getting over that hump, knocking off the Chiefs is really their Achilles heel. Maybe this is the year. I don't. Any other big picture roster stuff. I would also notice we don't normally talk about kickers, but again, Justin Tucker has been awesome.
His arrogance is crazy.
I know. I don't like that he's cocky as a kicker, but if you're hitting those type of big kicks, especially in the AFC North, where those games often come down to a field goal, often cold weather. He's very good at both. And you want to talk about a team that can take advantage of the new kickoff rules. Mm-hmm. You have a head coach, Harbaugh, former special teams coach, who basically, made his bread, in the NFL, coaching up special teams, combined with Justin Tucker. Like if anyone can squeeze out maybe an extra win or two because of these new rules, or put themselves in favorable field position consistently and maximize whatever you can get out of this rule, it has to be the Baltimore Ravens, right?
Yeah, I think they're just a plus EV team.
Yeah,
we broke down how they were being plus EV about the trip to London, the trip across the pond after they did that poorly one time. The front office is efficient. They just don't. When do you hear? When are the Ravens?
No, they're just
when are they being lambasted for any decision they make?
They were
Even the way they handled the Lamar situation.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't have handled that any better. Lamar put them in a weird pickle, and they handled it as well as they're going to handle it.
And he's
it's that Harbaugh culture.
Yeah. Again, I mean, defensive DVOA #1, which it's tough to run that back. Offensive DVOA #4.
They had 60 sacks last year. They're not getting 60 sacks this year.
Yeah. Again, I think their defense will still be good. I don't think it will be quite as good as it was last year in the regular season. But what were they? They were 13-4. I mean, they could be 11-6, 12-5. I do think that special teams would give them a nice little edge. And Isaiah Likely, Ryan, I know I'm a broken record, and you think I'm crazy, but they ran a straw poll amongst the media members of who was flashing the most in camp. The #1 offensive player receiving the most votes, Isaiah Likely. I think he's going to see a ton of opportunities in this offense.
This is a 3-year continuation bet since he came out of Coastal Carolina. I've been drafting him in these fantasy leagues ever since.
No,
this is the year.
But I mean, last year he had 5 touchdowns on 30 catches, 3 touchdowns on 36 catches his rookie year. Like his yards per target was awesome. His success rate receiving first downs. He clearly has a connection with Lamar, and they lost Beckham. I think they're going to be running a lot of 12 personnel. So I think Isaiah Likely is going to be a part of the offense.
Yeah, I think it's going to be different 12 personnel though.
What do you mean?
I think you're going to see Andrews and Likely lined up in the slot. Like it's not going to be your traditional, attached to the line of scrimmage 12 personnel. That's
all right, Ryan. We got a special guest.
Wait. Last thing before, you're not worried about Beckham leaving?
No. No,
and we didn't really.
Although his I mean, when I looked back on what he did, I mean, what do you think Odell Beckham was receiving yards last year? Because it was higher than I thought.
He had a decent. I mean, Lamar trusted him more than he trusts Rashad Bateman.
It's just crazy. He doesn't like Rashad Bateman. I don't know. Like there's something going on.
Bateman though.
Yeah, but they clearly have trouble like syncing up.
And Bateman is. Yeah, I don't know. I don't get the Bateman thing. Nelson Aguilar is still going to play in this offense. Unless someone like Devontae Walker, the rookie out of North Carolina, which by the he's not been practicing. So I do think the question is there, and we didn't really talk about the offensive line. They lost a lot on the offensive line, and so we're making like you mentioned the coach being ill, but just the tremendous amount of turnover there. So we're also kind of taking a decent leap that they're going to be able to do that again. And so there's a decent amount of instability with this team to make me wonder if they can be as good as they were last year. As a Ravens fan.
Yeah, no, I mean what is their, before we hop in, what is their PFF O-line ranking? I think they're not. I mean, yeah,
the
they're
number
25th.
I have is. I was going to say that the numbers I've seen are like all bottom half of the league.
And again, I hope for the speedy recovery for him. But if you're 25th offensive line rank and you don't have a really good offensive line coach, that could create some issues. Now, obviously, Lamar being mobile certainly helps with that. But they were a team that could run it down your throat and had great pass protection for a guy like Lamar, who maybe wanted to wait for some stuff to develop downfield.
It really didn't dawn on me until I was doing the Ravens prep on how similar the Bills and Ravens are to me this year.
Really?
Just like they're a little. I like the structure and organization of the Ravens better, but there's all these little bits of uncertainty.
Yeah.
That the Ravens were a better version last year, but yeah, the small step back across a couple areas, and I wonder.
Jadeveon Clowney, while he never lived up to the hype. He was a pretty productive.
He was good in the system,
lineman for them on the D line,
and that's a great point. You got to replace him.
Yeah. All right. We're going to be joined by our special guest Shark. Before we do that, shout out to Underdog Fantasy. Love me some Underdog Fantasy. Unfortunately, my JJ McCarthy lower 18.5 passing touchdowns never got to see the light of day, but there's plenty of other NFL season long higher lower on the fantasy projections. We're going to be giving out our favorite Ravens plays at the end of the episode, so make sure you stay tuned for that. I mean, you got Lamar, they have passing touchdowns, passing yards, rushing touchdowns. Derrick Henry, Ryan, what do you think Derrick Henry's rushing touchdowns are set at?
It's got to be 10.5.
10.5. That's, I mean, again, that's crazy for a guy who keeps slipping in the fantasy football streets. Mark Andrews sitting here at 6.5 receiving touchdowns. I know which way I'm looking there. Of course, underdogfantasy.com, promo code SGPN. Get signed up today. Get the deposit match, and they have a bunch of great bonuses and discounted slips all the time. So stay tuned. Underdogfantasy.com, promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Circus Sports, home of Circa Million, 6 million guaranteed. Kramer and I will be entering that contest. Circus Survivor. You know we're going to be entering that. 10 million guaranteed, 16 million in total. Sign up using our proxy, Vegas Maddie, and we will give you a free hat if you use the proxy. Proxy.footballcontest.com, promo code SGP. Get $50 off the proxy fees and a free hat. August 22nd to the 24th, we're going to be out Circus. So next weekend, come out, say what's up, crack a cold one, enter the contest. SGP 15, get you 15% off your hotel stay. Come say hi. We're going to be doing live shows, open bar events. It's a great weekend. If you're thinking, hey, I want to come out to Vegas between now and kickoff, this is the weekend, ultimate contest weekend. Get all the details over at circusports.com.
You could catch me playing the NFL slot in the wild.
The slot.
Always possible.
Yes, either go to the VSiN area, probably hanging out around there, the sports book, or the NFL slot machine. Those are like the three big areas.
Maybe Saginaws.
Maybe if we're drunk enough eating Saginaws. Joining us on the line, the man, the myth, the legend, only has one name. That's all he needs. Mr. Shark. What's happening, Shark?
Not much. Couple months off the air since basketball. So hyped to be here with you guys. I'll say it. I love to say it. A suddenly not so casual thirsty Thursday. Sean, yes. I know it's going to flow later. It was flowing last night. It's the middle of the summer. It's a great spot to be here. You guys were saying you're going into the big time teams now. Of course, Ravens today, Niners, Chiefs, etc. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. Let's talk some big time pro football, guys. Let's get in there.
Done and done. And this is the most professional team. So much so that Lamar is not only a MVP caliber quarterback, Sean, but he's also a qualified agent.
Yeah, always manager. Interesting. Always interesting. Like when these guys try to be their own agents, just don't do that. Whatever savings you're gonna get from the 10%, it's not worth it. And you know, Shark's a real one because before we hopped on the show, he's just like, man, the NFL primetime song gets me so jacked up. It really. And I don't know. Shark.
Rock hard is what I said.
Yes, exactly. Ryan was fully.
You have to know when to come.
Going full Doris.
Honey, turn on the NFL music.
I mean, anytime I'm on, Twitter and there's like those old primetime clips of Chris Berman and Tom Jackson, just like I don't know. It's a great business model or whatever, but they just like it'll be like week 6 from 1994, and they'll be playing highlights, and I'm just, it's Berman and TJ breaking it down. I'm like, I remember this game. I remember a young Sean Green. This was awesome. The music though, it gets you jacked, right?
It gets me incredibly hyped. I mean, Sean, like you're talking about the 90s. I used to be glued to the TV, 7:00 Eastern. As you said, Berman and Tom Jackson just ripping through about an hour fast. And then, of course, ESPN took it off the air for a little while. And I was wondering, guys, like, be aware of your product. That's one of your best shows. And, the music is just absolutely ridiculous. Like, get me in the middle of the summer here in June, July in Florida. It's hot. Turn that on. I get more jacked up to run through a wall. So intro that. I intro my show with that song, too. I mean, just an absolutely electric instrumental track there.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the sports music that has been used over the years is just it all slaps.
I mean, like the CBS, the doo 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 doo. I mean, obviously the original NFL song. I mean the NFL and Fox, like, football. How can you not get
YouTube is taking us down?
Yeah, I got it down to like 8 seconds of the NFL theme on Fox before we get flagged. So do your worst, YouTube. And it's the music really. It just goes so well with the pageantry, the majesty that is the National Football League. Ryan, let's take a look at the Ravens odds, and then we're gonna hop into the schedule, of course. Recapping the schedule and talking our favorite futures bets. Win total sitting at 10.5. Make playoffs -235. Miss playoffs +186. Division +145. Conference +550. Super Bowl 10-1. And Shark, before we get in, where are you at with Lamar Jackson overall? I admittedly have thrown some salt his way over the years.
Some salt,
Yeah,
not good luck salt.
No,
Not over the shoulder in front of you.
But Kramer's on the opposite side. He finds himself more Lamar stan. Where are you at with Lamar?
I'm a salt bay over the steak, little salt in the margarita, the positive side of the salt. And
I like that.
You know, I was talking to Sean off the record about this, and I've been, not doing a lot of content on football, but I watch TV and I hear the narratives. And the thing that I've heard over and over is that the guy can't play in the playoffs. 54-18 straight up in the regular season, which is just absolutely dominant. But playoffs 2-4 and turnover prone pretty continuously throughout the 6 or 7 years. But I was going through it last night and I was kind of blown away by potentially how out of context that statistic is at 2-4, because two of those losses happened in 2018 when he took over midseason for Joe Flacco. And if you guys remember, coming out of Louisville, the guy was just not a pro-style quarterback throwing the football at all. Throw that out. And then his first full season, 2019, a home loss to the Titans, a game that Baltimore outgained the Titans 530 to 300 and had 29 first downs versus 15 first downs, and somehow lost the game 28-12. And then just very briefly, 2 years removed, because he did have two injury prone seasons, 2021 and 2020. He did lose a game in Buffalo. You guys probably remember this divisional round going back 2020 COVID year. Basically a tie game late in the fourth quarter. He throws a 100-yard pick six at the goal line. Real tight game there. Could have been a win. And then come back to last year. Blew out a really upstart Houston team with CJ Stroud. And then the AFC title game last year. Tight loss, 17-10, 2 turnovers late in the red zone. It could have been a win. So I'm right there with you, Kramer. I think this guy is far better than people are willing to give him credit for in the postseason. And at 27 years old, year 2 of his contract, he's got a lot to prove. It's his team. Harbaugh's a great coach. We are bull market on the Ravens this year.
I certainly, the regular season stuff, like I was saying, Sean, it's like the Bills a little bit for me, where the quarterback makes it so this team can only be so bad.
Yeah.
Now, how good they can be.
What is their ceiling with the season, with the questions at the offensive line?
I like the galaxy brain shit.
Yeah.
Is success in the regular season really helping Harbaugh and Lamar win in the postseason? Maybe they don't need to grind out 14 wins. Maybe they need to focus on being healthy. I don't know. Like I said, there's enough. I have enough questions across the board to where like I'm still on the idea that Lamar is a clear MVP candidate. He's going to carry this team, but if there's a couple things that don't go right around him, are we looking at another like, man, if they only had some receiving targets for Lamar Jackson? That's the problem.
It is interesting kind of trying to sort through why he hasn't been more successful in the playoffs. I do think, coaching deserves some of it. You mentioned that Tennessee game. I was on Tennessee money line, not to brag, back in 2019.
Totally on the right side.
Well, that was just that was also, I was like getting my ass kicked in Tennessee. I think it was like plus 250 on the money line. I was like, I'll win it all back, and unfortunately I did. 59 pass attempts. Like you're not winning a playoff game where Lamar is throwing 59 pass.
They forget to run the ball.
Yeah, and they forgot to run the ball against the Chiefs. 37 pass attempts against that Chiefs defense.
We were saying it in real time. It's like, why are they running the ball?
And again, I was also on the Chiefs in that game, but if Bateman doesn't extend the ball and fumble it going into the end zone, very different game. So it's probably a combination of the right situation, some bad breaks, not going for Lamar, and we'll eventually see if Lamar has it, because I do think hard to not predict that they'll at least be in the mix for the playoffs this year. But let's get into the schedule, see where we're at. We break it down by quadrants.
And I don't know if you know, the only other note I had is that we have skinny Lamar this year. He saw some pictures of himself and thought he looked fat. And so he slimmed down, which I mean, come on, as a guy that can break a 60-yard run, gotta love to see that. No, although fragility again, is he going to be turned into Jaden Daniels here and just break after one tackle? All right. As we mentioned earlier, Sean, very difficult schedule. It's always going to look difficult to most metrics because of their division. But this one's pretty tough, and they end up being favored 14 times. So it's still pretty, as Shark just mentioned, potentially bullish here. All right, love it. Thursday night, Sean. We've already broken down the first touchdown market here.
Yeah,
because
Carson
it's been out for months. At Chiefs on Thursday night to open the season. We'll be watching this out in beautiful Las Vegas. Then we have the Raiders at home, at Cowboys, Bills at home. The tricky little stretch here. I gave them the win against the Bills when we broke that game, that team down recently. I see no reason to take them or to not take them against the Raiders, other than a potential letdown spot. But you have the mini bye, and then the Chiefs to open the year.
Yeah, I
feels like the ultimate time for the Ravens to beat the Chiefs in the regular season.
True, but then also Andy Reid. I mean, yeah, they lost to the Lions last year, but Kadarius Toney single-handedly cost them that game, and
but they were playing a team that was trying to prove a point. That's the
Detroit. Yeah, and we'll see. I'm sure Ravens similarly they want to prove a point, but historically, Andy Reid has been pretty good opening week with extra time to prepare. Should be a great game. I don't know if I'm locked in yet. I see both cases. For the Ravens in a regular season grudge match, and also the Chiefs at home. Normally the team coming off the Super Bowl. I mean, again, last year it didn't work out, but normally the team Super Bowl at home, that first game, they're all right. ATS, the letdown usually comes in week 2, but I'll give them, without locking in any specifics, I'll give them 3-1 here for the quadrant. Are you going 4-0, Ryan?
That's the only game on the season where they're projected to be a dog of a field goal or more. And
that's crazy.
This stretch includes 2 of the 3 dog spots for them. So, I think I'll go.
So they're a 1-point dog at Cowboys.
3-1.
3-1.
Yeah.
Shark, first 4 games, and I know I follow you on the old X. I know you've been locked in on the Ravens, getting 3 there that opening night. What else? Well, maybe you think Chiefs get the win and they get the cover. I don't know. I'm guessing you also like Ravens money line, but where are you at this first 4 games?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough start. I mean, if you look at even going to week 5 with the Bengals, 4 out of their first 5, just absolute gauntlet type of opponents. Yeah. But I got to be honest with you. I was looking at 3-1, but I think I'm going to go 4-0 here. And if I'll just, what you guys are laying me up with this. I mean, I completely agree with the Kansas City fade spot in week 1. And it's just, I look at Kansas City, crazily enough, as the new Patriots. I mean, this is the first team that has legitimate, sustainable dynasty quality since the early 2000s Patriots. And if you really look at what the Patriots used to do, they would come out flat in September because they're not really trying to play their best ball in September. They're trying to peak December through February. And not only that, they probably had a little bit more of a glamorous summer. They're not as angry in week 1 coming out. Oftentimes they lose coordinators. Other teams will poach their personnel. You mentioned Kadarius Toney. I know is he even on the team this year? I know they have new receivers coming.
They tried to put him in the running back room, but he's already hurt. It's been a hilarious journey for what's his rap name, Ryan?
Oh, come on.
Oh, okay.
I'm not into music.
Well, I know a lot of the Giants guys become
it's better
rappers.
than Darren Waller music. Young Joker.
Young Joker. Shout out to Young Joker.
Thank you, producer.
I knew it was something funny. Sorry.
No, I mean Darren Waller. He broke up with what's her name, Kelsey Plum from the Las Vegas Aces, and he takes a rap career and retires. I mean, talk about a nice life transition in the offseason, right? But
that music video, amazing. You got him starting out hot. I see the case. 4-0 for the Ravens.
Wow.
So Sean, just one more point on that.
Sure.
And if you go to the Ravens side of the game, I mean, you talk about just a layup on motivation. Like I was looking at this the other day and I was thinking to myself, speaking of the Patriots, Belichick used to have to find, back tabloid stuff to piss his guys off to get them up for the game. This is the most obvious thing on the planet. You just lost AFC title game in your home stadium, and now you get an opener revenge game when they get their rings right in front of your face. Baltimore has such a competitive and motivational edge in this particular spot. I do think they win. And just briefly on the next couple of weeks, I think they win against the Raiders, but probably don't cover. I actually like Raiders plus 7.5 there. I think there's a game last year that Baltimore played early season at home against The Colts with Gardner Minshew at quarterback, they lost outright in overtime.
Yeah.
Definitely a trap game there. And then the Cowboys, I think they beat the Cowboys. I know you guys have ripped the Cowboys, and correctly so. I mean, this team is in absolute shambles, not paying CeeDee Lamb. The coach is in the last year of his contract. He's the lame duck coach. Dak might not get re-signed. It's a disaster. And I think they get the Bills at home. So obviously tough schedule, but I think Baltimore is that good in this particular season.
Oh, you make a good point. 3. All right, I'll stick at 3-1. I'm being tempted by the devil that is this fucking Ravens team that brings me in every year. All right, next 3 road games in 4 games, and of course they're in the AFC, Sean. So the Ravens do have 9 road games this year. At Bengals, Commanders at home, at Bucks on Monday Night Football, at Browns. You know how I handicap these divisions. Got to just chop it up. So that's already 2 losses right there.
That's tough.
I think the local regional rivalry of the Redskins and the Ravens renewed here as Jaden Daniels is mini Lamar Jackson. That's a win. And then Lamar. Once upon a time, we thought Lamar played well down in Florida, but that's cooled off a little. I think this might be 1-3.
Yeah, I mean, you could make a case. 3 road games. I think it's tough to obviously give the Commanders a straight up win there. Although they might be frisky ATS, and then
no way.
At Bucks, and then you got at Browns on a short week. And as we know, the Browns defense totally different at home versus on the road. At Cincy, assuming they're healthy, that's going to be a tough matchup for them. I don't know if I can go 1-3.
Maybe it is 2-2. The Bucks are in a sandwich spot of divisional games.
I'll go 2-2. But again, playing at Cleveland on a short week, I think is really tough. And then at Cincy is always tough. So, and you're right. They might.
Lamar is very good against the spread as a dog. It's just very few opportunities.
That's true. But I'll go 2-2. I'll keep it somewhat reasonable. What are you doing, Ryan?
1-3.
1-3. All right. Wow, the Ravens fan turning on him. But you're right, Ryan. Maybe they are shifting gears and are going to be like, "Hey, we get the late bye. We got a couple winnable home games late to play the Giants. That's a cakewalk." And maybe they're going to hold off on unloading the clip early and make sure they come in ready to go.
Or maybe they're just their offensive line isn't what it has been, or maybe there's just maybe the defense isn't quite as good as it was last year.
Shark, where are you at with Ravens in games 5 through 8 here?
Yeah, I do think this is where they play a little. I think they regress a little downward off the 4-0 start. I think Bengals road game in Week 5 is one of the toughest games on their schedule. I think the Bengals win that one at least by 3 points. Week 6 Commanders, they should cover. I think they'll probably blow them out, to be perfectly honest, in a bounce back. I think that might be a mini bye as well. I know they have 2 mini buys in the first 10 or 13 weeks. You check me on that though. I'm not sure. It might come a little bit later. At Buccaneers, I think that's a sharp line. I think they win the game. It's probably about a push. Pretty interesting line because 2 years ago they actually played a primetime Thursday night game in Tampa Bay and they won the game by exactly 5 points. So the books are basically telling you the same game is just going to repeat itself there. And then the game at the Browns, I think the Browns do win that game. I have the Browns to be an absolute home juggernaut this year. Deshaun Watson still in his prime. I mean, it seems like the guy's been around forever. He's still in his late 20s. He's finally clear of getting massages every 5 minutes. We think. We don't know.
Deshaun Watson.
But I will say this. Go back to the Ravens last year. The only time the Ravens played back-to-back road games last year, with the second game being a divisional road game, it was week 4 and 5. They beat Cleveland in the first of those 2 games, and then they went to Pittsburgh in the back-to-back and played one of their worst games of the year, 17-10 loss to Kenny Pickett and a really mediocre Pittsburgh team. So in my opinion, out of the first 8 weeks, I think they really bottom out week 8 at the Browns, and that could be a margin loss. So I'm going to go 2-2 here, both divisional road losses.
Yeah, no, I mean,
yeah, I agree with that.
You could the Kramer's case for 1-3 if they mess around in Tampa is certainly possible with maybe the look ahead to the Browns, but I think 2-2 is reasonable considering they're favored in 3 of those.
Yeah, I'm not being reasonable at all. Week 9, we got the Broncos coming to town. Sean Payton with his new toy, hopefully Bo Nix. Then week 10, the Bengals on Thursday night. This is that second mini bye that you were talking about. They then have the Steelers on long rest in Pittsburgh. at Chargers on Monday night. I got to imagine there'll be some Ravens fans coming out to Los Angeles.
Well,
for
this is going to be interesting. It's going to be the Harbaugh Bowl.
Yeah, the Har Bowl, and then maybe it'll just be friends and family in the building. Hopefully the power stays on. So Broncos at home, Bengals on Thursday night at home, at Steelers, at Chargers on Monday Night Football.
I mean, the fact that they're making the Ravens a 3-point road favorite against Pittsburgh, like, what are we doing?
Yeah, that's not.
We know how the AFC North works. Shark just mentioned it. You know, Kenny Pickett took down this Ravens team last year. Like the AFC North always chops itself up. Since I was kind of leaning on the optimistic side, I think 2-2 here because they have that at Steelers and then at Chargers could be a letdown spot. I'll go 2-2.
John's not losing the Jim. He understands.
Oh, you think
Jim has a weak team. You can't fuck around with that.
Well,
game.
and the plantar fascia with Herbert is going to be rough. But I'll go 2-2 because I was.
If you're John Harbaugh and your brother's fucking Jim Harbaugh, you got to beat him when you can beat him.
This
is 100% a win for John. Yeah, 2-2.
2-2. All right, so you do have
3-1. 3-1. 3-1.
Yeah. See, I'm going 2-2 because I almost went 1-3 in the last
2-2. 2-2.
Okay.
You're tricking me.
No, I'm not tricking you. I said
2-2.
I'm going 2-2. I almost went 1-3 last quadrant. So now I'm at 7-5. Ryan at 6-6. Shark. And sorry, Shark, you had what did you have officially for that last quadrant? Sorry, I missed it.
2-2. I had the road losses, road divisional losses there.
So you got him 6-2 coming into this 4-game stretch. What do you like here for the Ravens?
Well, I think week 9 is a blowout without question. I think they come off a road loss and they just get a bottom feeder right where they want them to hammer them at home. And, I was looking at their home schedule this year. They have a really soft home schedule. They get Vegas, Washington, Denver, and they get Cleveland and Pittsburgh at home and a couple other Buffalo. It's a soft home schedule for them. And their road schedule is really brutal. So they're going to struggle on the road, but they're going to they could sweep their home calendar, in my opinion. It's that soft. I think they cover and win against the Bengals, presuming that's a revenge game in season. I don't see the Bengals beating them twice, particularly on the road, particularly in a revenge spot for the Ravens. So I think Thursday Night Football Week 10, I will probably be on the Ravens there in some capacity. I think they do beat the Steelers. I think an interesting point about this Steelers spot, Steelers actually did beat the Ravens twice last year. The game we just discussed, and in Week 18. I'm not sure if Lamar Jackson was playing that game, but I think that stands for something. I think the Ravens don't lose 3 consecutive games to the Steelers. And I think actually they might play. Yeah, and I think they actually might play a better game this year if it's Russell Wilson, a slightly more motivated spot with a better personnel type of thing. And then I do think they probably go road back-to-back again, not when they travel particularly well. I think Jim Harbaugh wins that one on Monday Night Football there. As long as Herbert's healthy, obviously, a lot could happen going up to that point. But I do think that's a brutal spot for them coming off yet another winning streak in a divisional road win at the Steelers. So 3-1 loss Monday Night Football Week 12.
Okay, so 3-1. Sharks got him sitting 9-3. I'm 7-5. Kramer 6-6.
All right, we got the Eagles Week 13, late bye week, which is good if you're gearing up for the postseason. And coming off the bye against my New York Giants, who at this point in the season probably cooking with gas.
Oh, look out!
Steelers on Saturday night as we queue them up for the Netflix special on Christmas Day against the Texans, and then closing it out with the Browns. I got to give the home games or the home division games to the Ravens.
Well, that at Texans is super tough because it's a Saturday to a Wednesday. And then Wednesday where you're also traveling, right? And it's in between 2 division games, 2 division home games. So it's kind of a nightmare scenario to play the Texans. I do
sandwiched in between 2 division games.
Yeah. I think very least 3-2 here. I have them. Josh, double check this. There's no way they're favored against the Eagles. Did they not listen to the Eagles team preview? Come on. No, that should be a great. That'll be a great game.
Get the hook and everything.
But yeah, I think that at Texans is a loss, and then maybe they drop another one between those other 4. I think 3-2, pretty reasonable. You could talk me into maybe 4-1, them closing strong if they somehow lose the Eagles, and then pull out that miracle Texans win. The Texans schedule spot to me, it feels like it's going to be impossible for them. So I'll go 3-2. Ryan, you have them 6-6. How do you have them finishing out?
I think it's 3-2.
3-2. Okay.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with you. I think there's maybe a loss to be had there. I mean, I certainly think the Texans game you have to circle, and maybe that Philly game. 3-2. What is that?
So you're in at 9-8. I'm in at 10-7, which is what I had them last year, and then they made me look like an idiot going 13-4. But I'll run it back. I think you know, Ryan, you convinced me to maybe be a little bit more cautious on them because the offensive line stuff. To Shark's point, like, yeah, their home schedule is pretty good. But some of these road games are really tough. I mean, even the stuff outside the division, you got at Chiefs, you got at Bucks on a Monday night, at Texans on Christmas. Like, there's just some tough schedule spots. They do the 3 games in 11 days, which is always brutal for guys. You know, and they have a net rest edge, but like, if you actually look as we did game by game, there are a couple bad spots for them. So Shark, how say you on these last 5? What do you got the old Baltimore Ravens doing?
Yeah, this is where I think it gets pretty interesting, because I could see a couple of these games going either way. I think they do beat the Eagles again against the spread, totally different than on the money line. All we're talking here is money line. I think they do beat the Eagles pre-bye, but after the bye is where I think it gets kind of funky. Like, I could see them losing the Giants on the road. If you actually go back last year, they did not play particularly well on the road. They went 6-1 straight up on the road last year, but their schedule was incredibly soft. Just to go through it real briefly, they caught the Bengals. Burrow had a camp injury. They hammered Cleveland. Deshaun Watson was out. The kid from UCLA was the quarterback. They lost to Pittsburgh, as we said before. They barely beat Arizona, who was terrible last year. They beat the Chargers, who were cliff diving with Brandon Staley. They beat Jacksonville late season when Jackson was in a free fall, and they beat San Francisco when Brock Purdy threw 4 picks. So every win on the road last year was either a team that was injured in complete free fall or an obscene interception outlier. So I'm not sure they're that great on the road in this type of spot against the Giants. And as I mentioned, I think very interesting. 2 years ago, they beat the Bucks by 5 points on prime time. 2 years ago, they actually lost to the Giants in MetLife Stadium outright. And I think if you look at what the Giants are doing this year, I'm pretty bullish on the Giants. I think the Giants are going to be a bounce back campaign this year. You know, went to the playoffs 2 years ago, kind of cliff dove last year, injuries, you know, a lot of moving parts, but I think they're going to be better. I think it's a trap game. You know, you come off of really a tough schedule leading into the bye with Bengals, Steelers, Chargers, Eagles. You get a bye, presumably hot going into the bye, come out, flat game at the Giants. I think Giants are going to be upstart. I can see them losing the Giants. I'm going to take the Giants in that game straight up. I think it's also a look ahead to the Steelers.
Yeah,
I think they beat the Steelers at home pretty comfortably. And I think they lose, as you mentioned, to the Texans on the road in a ridiculous sandwich, 3-game, no rest. And Texans will be loaded at home on Christmas Day. And then I think week 18 is slightly ambiguous. We don't really know if they're going to be the 1 seed locked up, if they'll play their players, if the Browns will need it, if they'll need it. We just don't know. As it currently stands, I will take them to beat the Browns, presuming the Browns win at home. That's another revenge game. So Eagles win, Giants loss, Steelers win, Texans loss, Browns win. 3-2.
3-2, which has you finishing them out 12-5. Yeah, I totally
same record I have for the Steelers.
Yeah, we're slightly higher than market on the Steelers.
I'm lower than I expected.
The AFC North is always a crapshoot, and it's crazy. Like, you always want to pick one of these AFC North teams to kind of be the dog. I mean, I understand why the market's down on the Steelers, but yeah, I mean they always just beat each other up, and it's going to be a great division. All right, we're going to get to some of our favorite futures here for the Baltimore Ravens. Before we do that, shout out to Rhythm. Have you guys signed up with Rhythm? What are you waiting for? sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM, the place for AI sports picks and props. If you're intimidated by using a model, don't be. Very easy to set up your own model, plug in the stats you want, the stats that matter to you, and Rhythm will build you a custom model. We'll back test the data, and we'll spit out, hey, this is how this model performs. If you got some trends, some angles you're looking to work, oh, hey, maybe this isn't as good as I thought, or maybe it's better. Or if you don't want to mess around building your own model, you can just have Rhythm build one for you. sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. Sign up now, get the free 7-day trial. They have week 0, week NFL projections, picks already loaded in there. What are you waiting for? sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. So Ryan, we'll start with you. Under 10.5 wins, I'm putting you down for. You got him a game and a half below at 9.
I hope you're not. I hope people don't feel like I misled them.
What do you mean? Well, you were.
I was thought I was going to be higher on the Ravens.
Really? But then just walking through the schedule, you didn't get there.
Well, I also think as I was kind of looking into it, like I said, I thought I would be hypocritical of me to have the feedback on some of these other organizations with a bit of, more questions. I do think Lamar keeps them from, maybe I'm close to the floor case here, but why wouldn't I sprinkle missed playoffs?
And missed playoffs, you got at what is that, like plus 185?
I don't want to do the whole CLV thing, but I did. This is my most recent investment on the NFL season.
Yeah,
plus 210.
Plus
right
210.
now, you can find that at DK.
Them being the odd team out in this AFC North. You know what, Ryan?
We're high on the South.
Yeah.
Like I can't be high on all these fucking teams.
And put it this way: if you had, the fact that you're out on the Ravens has me a little worried. I'll copy your missed playoffs at plus. The
offensive line. If the offensive line is randomly not good, it'll be very interesting to see. Go look at the receiver depth chart.
Yeah,
and tell me how that makes you feel.
No, I'm not gonna go as far as miss playoffs because I think them getting, at the very least, them sneaking into that 7th spot, I think is pretty interesting. But Shark, what are some of the futures you like here? I obviously higher a little bit and then Kramer and I, you got the over 10.5 wins. You've already locked them up plus 3 NFL week 1. What else is on your future sheet for the Ravens?
Yeah, I was looking at the team total number at 10.5, and again, I said 12-5. I think that's incredibly sharp. So I'm much more honed into their playoff picture. And Kramer, I disagree. I wish I was out there with you guys in Vegas. We could watch these games and just drink some beers and kind of heckle each other over the course of the year. But I like Baltimore to be the 1 seed, and I think you saw it the last couple of years. You guys said it; they're a great regular season team. I don't think it's going to change. I think that's a mentality. It's a focus point. And I think it continues to be a focus point when you have not won a Super Bowl. You want to keep getting the 1 seed. You want home field advantage. It's just what they're going to do. So I have them at the 1 seed. And again, I think Kansas City just doesn't care about the regular season at this point in their arc. Obviously, 3 titles, 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. Not worried about the regular season at all. And I do have them to win the conference. I think that San Francisco wins the Super Bowl for me over the Ravens this year. So I have them to win the conference. I think Kansas City going for a 3-peat hasn't happened since, I believe, Dallas in the early 90s. The Patriots didn't even do it.
That is a disgusting act.
What, Shark? What do you got the number 1 seed at for the Ravens? What's your price there?
Plus 600. Plus 600 is the number for the exact seed. It's a better price. If you actually bet AFC number 1 seed, you get plus 500. But exact seed, you get plus 600. And
that it is hilarious how books will post like the same bet but at different prices. That's why you gotta look through all the sheets, because even on the same sports book, you can find 2 bets that are the same thing that are just priced differently. It's hilarious.
Oh, without question. I was gonna say that. Who was that? Joe Buck on that call. What was that? That could be. I was gonna say that could be applied to a lot of McCarthy Prescott football in the last 5 years.
Very disgusting.
100%. So you like them to win the AFC at plus 550.
See, if I was higher on them, the 1 seed, it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do the continuation bet to have them win the AFC as well. That just feels like I'd be walking down a path of, well, this hasn't happened before. Is it really going to happen this year?
No, I of the 2, like if you're high on the Ravens, I like his
1 seed is
number 1 seed way better.
MVP, does he run it back?
I don't.
You know, just a point on that. Like, I actually think it's borderline impossible for them not to cash one of these, because I think either they're going to be great in the regular season as they always are, or if they somehow coast, reserve energy, something happens. I could see the Bengals maybe catching a heat check and getting the 1 seed, whatever. But then in that case, I think you might see a reversal from what they've done, which is obviously wash out in the AFC playoffs. And I think another key point here is just the fact that Lamar did get hurt to finish the season in 2021 and 2022. So they might reserve energy from some standpoint, so he's not injured going to the playoffs. And I mean, let's be honest, I've been talking the whole broadcast about how the Chiefs don't care about the regular season because they've already won 3 titles. But I mean, the Ravens kind of remind me of the current New York Yankees, like a loaded team that just hasn't gotten to the title, but the roster is loaded as hell every year. And it's got to hit it at least once, in my opinion. And why wouldn't it hit the year that KC is trying to go for 3 in a row? I mean, that's the hardest thing to do in sports, 3-peat, right? So,
yeah. And we haven't even mentioned our hero, Aaron Rodgers, returning to battle.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So, all right. Yeah, no, I mean, it's easy. And, I totally get it. The optimism on the Ravens. Ryan, any other futures you like here for the Ravens?
The say something nice segment is also going to be the underdog.
Oh, okay. So what do you got? What do you got for underdog season long?
I mean, I look at what Zay Flowers did last year, and I see a guy who clearly they liked what he was willing to offer, but there were just some games where he just wasn't super involved. I got to imagine that changes a little bit in year 2 here, especially if they expand to using more of the 2 tight end look. Sean, 77 catches on 108 targets for 858 yards last year. They threw the number on underdog at 925.5. We're going to go higher. Clear. I mean, theme for me across many of these underdog entries, year 2 receivers, bullish on it. And again, go look at this receiver depth chart.
Yeah.
Have you, if you don't have it up in front of you,
read it off, Ryan.
So Zay Flowers is one of the starters with Rashad Bateman. He's had a lot of success staying on the field, and Nelson fucking Aguilar.
There was
the rookie that was hyped in the early camps. Devontae Walker hasn't seen the field in a while. It's Deontay Hardy. We know who that guy is. Russell Gage hasn't been practicing. This is a thin receiving group. So yeah, it's going to be the tight ends. It's going to be Zay Flowers. Higher 925.5 receiving.
You mentioned Nelson Aguilar, Ryan. I'm just sending it to Josh now.
What's that?
the video of the
catching babies like Nelson Aguilar.
Yeah, unlike Aguilar, we got to play that because Nelson Aguilar had 2 drops in practice, and Lamar Jackson like threw his helmet off, and then I follow all these Eagles accounts, and it's just them quote tweeting with the guy. Unlike Aguilar, it's one of those like viral news clips that seems almost staged because of how perfect it is. Oh, sweet. Awesome. We got it.
The fire trucks coming down the street. They was like in the far off distance or whatever like that. Smoke started getting worse. Then I seen a guy hanging out the window, screaming that his kids was in there, things like that. So I ran to the back door, see if it was open, and it was. I ran upstairs, and then I was greeted with smoke. I ran back downstairs. By that time, the ladder truck was pulling up. And ironically, then one of my old coworkers took the ladder off the truck, raised it up, and was assisting people down. My man just started throwing babies out the window. We was catching them, unlike Aguilar and his mishaps. I like to put that out there.
It's like a dead serious.
It's such a serious situation of literally catching babies from a burning building, and the guy's like, "Well, I got to clown on Aguilar." That's how Philly's.
And that's like so out of nowhere too.
Yes.
I mean, like, where does the sports reference come from? And where's this?
It's Philly. There's also a great news clip of a guy being led away. I don't know what he was getting arrested for. But he's led away, and the news come up. They're like, "Do you have anything to say for yourself?" And he just goes, "Go Birds." It was there's some really Philly's a different fan base. We mentioned it earlier. I do think this is. Now this is probably a pizza bet. It's not maybe the sharpest out there, but just the angle of Harbaugh, a guy who has built his career on special teams. Baltimore for the most return touchdowns, 35-1.
Wow.
I don't.
What a handicap.
I just think special teams matter in Baltimore. They're going to be, if anyone can take advantage of this rule, I think it's Harbaugh. And now that the kick return has kind of been worked out of the game. But I think if anyone can take advantage of the new rule, both the kicking and returning, and there's not really a fun way to obviously bet the kicking aspect of it, but I'll take a small sprinkle on Baltimore to have the most return touchdowns, 35-1, just to have a fun little sweat there. I mean, honestly, it's going to be, someone's going to win this with 2. There's 3 maybe. And it'll be interesting to see, and it's just fun to have a little sweat on that.
What's the Sean, what's the, who's the favorite? What's the lowest number there?
They had
it's Washington. It's like completely, it seems completely random.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't do, I didn't dive that deep because my angle is just like, hey, let's take some of these longer shots where you could easily make a case for them. But yeah,
the number is going to be like what, 3 returns, maybe.
Yeah, and there is such variance.
Maybe 2.
Yeah, why you're certainly going to be benefiting long term from the randomness of it. So yeah, hold on, let me kick off return. Yeah, Washington is the favorite at 16-1. Wow. Like Tennessee 16-1, Denver 16-1. Like
they seem to be just saying if you're bad, you're going to be returning kickoffs more. You'll have more opportunities.
True. Yeah,
that doesn't seem like it doesn't strike me as the kind of thing you just project volume.
No, Baltimore is at 35-1. Baltimore is the highest odds. Like I get maybe they're not going to be have quite as many opportunities as teams with some bad defenses that are listed up way high, but at 35-1, they're almost double like the Patriots, Commanders, Titans, Broncos, like that. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense.
They did also. It did seem like they signed Deontay Hardy because of his return man abilities. And so, again, this is a plus EV organization. You're probably like, if there's an edge, I trust the Ravens to find it as much as any team.
100%. My underdog play, Mark Andrews, lower 6.5 receiving touchdowns.
What?
Isaiah Likely is the guy.
A tradition like no other. Sean fading Mark Andrews.
Well, Ryan, you recall I took a ton of heat last year for not putting in my top 10 fantasy football tight ends.
You're not taking it seriously.
That
Sean.
came through, and he had 6 touchdowns last year. Isaiah Likely had 5. He had 5 the previous year. If you're saying like, oh, it's because he was injured. No, in 2022, he played 15 games, 73 catches, only 5 receiving touchdowns. He's not quite the red zone threat. Like he peaked in 2021 with those 9 receiving touchdowns, or you did 2019. He had 10. And he was already a little banged up. He was just in a bad car accident. Sounds like he's all right, but nothing major, but still at 6.5, I feel like that's crazy considering he's missed a bunch of games. Isaiah Likely, they bring him in the 12 personnel, and Derrick Henry, who, as we mentioned at the top of the show, is second in the odds to lead the league in rushing touchdowns. Those touchdowns have to come from somewhere. And I think Mark Andrews is going to be the guy not benefiting, even if I'm not totally out on the Ravens, like Ryan. I do think 6.5, him getting to 7 touchdowns. I just don't see it. Shark, is there anything on the underdog slate you find intriguing here?
Not really. I think, didn't Mark Andrews have some sort of issue a couple of years ago as well? Was it off the field?
I don't know about off the field, but he's missed some games for sure.
They say.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about losing weight. Some of these guys do benefit from it. Like, remember when Gronkowski lost like 30, 40 pounds with the Guerrero system and he stopped getting hurt? Like, who knows? But clearly we're not talking about Mark Andrews losing weight. It's Lamar Jackson. He's obviously a string bean as he is. But no, I mean, I didn't really look at it in any detail. I don't really cap fantasy stuff. So I'll trust you guys. I think that's probably, 6.5. We'll probably get 5, 6, something like that. We're obviously gambling on those lines, but best of luck to all.
Yeah, of course.
Although Sean, I do love that plus 3,500 plus 3,500. You said,
35-1.
Yeah, I mean, put $100 on that, you're walking away with $3,500. I mean,
yeah, come on.
and you get to root for the most abstract, like just hilarious bet of every week. Just watch their games, and honestly, from a schematic standpoint, you guys said it. Harbaugh came up. He was the special teams coordinator with the Eagles, right, or something like that.
Yeah, he has
with Andy Reid. He was the
something like that,
special teams coach. And just in general, I was actually reading about how their special teams coordinator was heavily involved in the committee that was working with the NFL on this new rule. So
they got the inside track. Yeah, he was special teams from Eagles 98 to 2006, and then okay. I was hesitating because they moved him to defensive backs in 2007 because there was a stigma back in the day about not hiring special teams guys to be head coaches, and Andy Reid, always good to his assistants, wanting to try and get them head coaching jobs. They made him D-backs coach in 2007. Then he ended up getting the Ravens job in 2008. But yeah, he also special teams at Indiana, Cincinnati, Morehead State. So again, like this dude knows special teams. And to Shark's point, like you're not going to feel cooked on this bet. I mean, I can see myself week 18. All they need is 2 return touchdowns to chop this pot, and it's a kind of a fun sweat. So
Sean, I was just gonna say that when you were talking about it, I was gonna say it because it's such a gamble. It's gonna probably cluster. Like they're probably gonna get 2 in 1 week. It's just gonna go that way. Like they schematically are more clear against one opponent in whatever week it is, and they just dominate because the way it's constructed. I mean, I haven't watched a lot of it, but it's kind of like goal line offense, right? Like you have one layer, and then you're just gone.
It's interesting too because it's modeled after the XFL kickoff, but the XFL kickoff, if you watch that at all, the athletes in the XFL aren't quite as good, obviously, as the NFL. Right. So the NFL, like the XFL, was a little less exciting, but even through the preseason, like you see some guys finding some lanes, some guys cracking things open, and again, like if you have a plan,
it's a football play,
and they coach up special teams. Also, I this part of this bet was because I saw our boy Brian Baldinger, shout out to Baldy, guest on the VSiN show. He was sharing some clips from Ravens camp of them working and drilling this a ton. So
how many kickoff returns have there been in the last 3 seasons of the NFL
for a touchdown?
Yep,
last 3 seasons total
kickoff return for touchdown NFL last 3 seasons.
Let's say 4.
I'll say
7.
7.
There were 4 last year, 2 the year before that, 3 the year before that. But it just highlights how there's maybe going to be a dead heat here.
Yeah, like even so, let's say they match the last 3 years, which NFL is setting it up for excitement, whatever. Yeah. Maybe they get 7. No one team is gonna have 7. The team that probably wins this maybe gets 3.
2.
Maybe gets 2. Like if you set the over under on the team to win this market, it might be 1.5 or 2.5.
Oh, so, Sean, we might need to look for some advantage betting. Maybe we can take scoop half the pool. I mean, and see about how.
Just look at it numbers wise. If it is to get to 3, there's so much fucking variance. There inherently is value on these teams that are double the price at 35.
So last year, Houston had 2.
Yeah.
New England had 1 and Denver had 1. Do you think Houston was chalk in this market? They might have been. They were projected to be a bad team.
True.
So, yeah, very interesting.
But they didn't end up being a bad team to that point, right? So
no, and one of the returns was that fluky fullback one that Beck had, if you remember.
Oh yeah, that was
so. I mean, definitely firing into this market, Sean.
All right, great times. Let's recap the best bets. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Look at Shark looking fresh there in the shades and the Shark, what do you got? I saw you were rocking a Mitchell and Ness hat earlier. What was the I love their stuff. Also a fellow hat lover. What do you got here?
This is Super Bowl 30. This is when the Niners beat, I believe, the Chargers in 1996. January 28th here.
blowout.
All-time blowout. Yeah, they put up like 45 on them or something. Crazy blowout. So Ryan, the low man on the Ravens totem pole, 9-8. I'm at 10-7. Shark likes him 12-5. AFC 1 seed, get him week 1 at +3, over 10.5 wins. I'm just under at 10-7 once again, but the Baltimore return touchdowns angle, super fun future for me. Andrew's lower. Kramer likes the Zay Flowers higher, and he thinks they'll miss the playoffs. +210. Shark, pleasure as always chopping it up. Where can people find you in the open oceans there?
The open ocean it is on X, Sharks and Sports 88, and pleasure, guys. Great getting in here. Football is going to be an amazing season. I feel like this season's just going to have so much life to it. You know, going back COVID year, it was flat, and then it's starting to grow. New generation of quarterbacks. League's in a great place. So you guys are doing great work. 2 days here with the previews. Now talking all the contenders, and we get into the fall. So hope to get out here with you guys soon. Let's dominate.
Let's get it. Appreciate having you on, and of course,
thank you for participating in the Sports Gambling Podcast.
For Sports Gambling Podcast, I'm Sean, Stack of the Money Green. He's Ryan.
A whole Ravens episode and no talk of Lamar taking a shit.
Kramer, let it ride.
At